We are here with Damon Shepard of Stantec. Stantec is an architectural and planning firm which is fully integrated. They provide for all the services necessary for planning of any building, of any infrastructure. Stantec has 12,000 employees in the US and something like 100 locations where they work. So we are here to speak with Damon about how does such a firm work, how does it proceed, what are its proceedings, the way it's working as an architectural firm, because here in Italy we are accustomed to firms with 2, 3, 20 architects, and for us to look at such a universe is something very surprising.
Well, Leonardo, thanks for having me. It is obviously very different than how you practice here with the smaller firms. I would say that, while we are 12,000, we do operate on a smaller scale. Mm-hmm. We've got over 100 locations, many of which may only have 20 to 30 professionals that specialize in different services. Mm-hmm. But one of the biggest differences, or one of the biggest benefits of such a large firm, is that we really feel we offer our clients a single point of contact for many different services. Mm-hmm. Particularly when we work with larger institutional or municipal clients, we're able to offer them services from architecture to engineering to infrastructure to transportation with a single project manager, mm-hmm. a single point of accountability, mm-hmm. and many clients find that comforting. Yes. They don't have to manage multiple contracts. They don't have to deal with multiple firms.
Just to have an idea of the dimension, more or less, how many plans have you, are you working on during 1 year?
As a firm?
Yes.
Oh, that's almost impossible to tell you. I can tell you that our Washington, D.C. office mm-hmm. has about 30 professionals. Mm-hmm. And in 1 year, we probably will do anything from maybe 15 to 25 projects mm-hmm. of various scales. Mm-hmm. Some can be very small, mm-hmm. As small as a small renovation of an office. Mm-hmm. Others can be a full building, over 100,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. So the scale varies, the types of services we offer vary, but I think what the biggest strength is that we bring to our clients is the fact that we're able to integrate. We have engineers that work side by side with architects, mm-hmm. and that gives a greater level of coordination and better product.
In that respect, technology, today's architecture depends a lot on the technology which is used for insulation, energy sparing, or even design. Do you think that your firm has a sort of better capacity to work out, to elaborate, to keep track of the development of new technologies?
That's a good point, Leonardo, and you're right. Those new technologies affect both design mm-hmm. and also the final built product. I'll start first with design.
Yes.
What we do as a firm is we utilize any and all technologies that we think will help us deliver a better project. Mm-hmm. Probably the most significant change in recent years is the use of building information modeling. Mm-hmm. And that's a three-dimensional representation of the building mm-hmm. that has intelligence. Mm-hmm. It's not just for visualizing, mm-hmm. it actually understands what the various components are. Mm-hmm. So that gives us a greater level of confidence that what gets built will work and will meet the client's needs. But you also mentioned building technology. Mm-hmm. And with the major emphasis on improving environmental friendliness of buildings, sustainability of buildings, mm-hmm. The greater complexity of buildings, the scale of buildings, we found that by having in-house engineers mm-hmm. working side by side with our architects, we're able to achieve a greater level of coordination and really a fully integrated design project. So one informs the other. You know, the architecture informs the engineering and vice versa.
The other aspect of planning, aside architecture and architects and engineers, is the client.
Yes.
I believe that you in the US and probably your own firm have a specific capacity of dialoguing, of getting to know precisely and to interpret the will of the client. How do you proceed?
Very true. In a practice like ours, where you have so many different professionals in so many different locations that are serving so many different types of clients, naturally it's going to be a very client-focused and client-driven approach. So what we do on any project with our services is we'll first meet with that client to assess and understand what their needs are. We try never to go in with any preconceived ideas or thoughts about what this project should be until we first talk to that client and understand what they need it to be. And those functional needs for the client become the driver for our design process. And while we all have different aesthetic ideas as architects, the single driver for all of us is going to be adequately meeting those clients' needs as the foundation of the design, and then as it evolves, some of the aesthetic components will start to take shape and will start to diverge depending on the project, depending on the architect, depending on the client.
You were mentioning that you as architects have each his own approach to design. Now, how do you think it goes together in your firm, the personal sensibility of the single architect with the big functioning of the firm? Doesn't the individual sort of disappear in this big apparatus of the firm? I don't know if the question is clear. How does the personal creativity?
That's a very good question. I guess the first thing I'd say is, in a firm like ours, obviously it's not a firm that's built on big name star architects. It's a firm that's built on the firm's brand and the firm's approach to a project. So architects don't seek a firm like Stantec because they want their name to be plastered over every project they do. They seek a firm like Stantec because they want to take advantage of the capacity of that firm to do great work, to do large projects, to do interesting projects, and work with various different client types. So I'll use myself as an example. Any architect certainly wants and seeks a certain level of personal satisfaction for any design. Well, with a firm like Stantec, I would argue that you'd have even greater flexibility and creativity because you don't have a personality that's driving the mission of the entire firm. All right. With many of the more personality-driven firms, what you have is one or two individuals that define what that firm is. Well, in a firm like Stantec, we each have the opportunity to be individuals within that larger infrastructure, and I found it works pretty well.
So you can say that if you, the characteristic of the firm, the style of the firm, is the capacity to approach the client and to develop the dialogue with the client. That is the real
exactly. We're a firm that's defined by what we offer the client, not by the image of a particular building. You're not going to look at a project and say, oh, that's a Stantec project.
Yes.
But what you will do is you'll look at an approach to servicing a client and say, that's how Stantec serves their clients.
Now let's speak about some of those projects.
Sure.
There are some that are here shown.
Sure.
Maybe you can speak just to give an idea of, you were saying earlier that you were working on a very interesting project of transportation in Canada. Unfortunately, this is not visible, but
that's okay. That's okay.
Maybe you can say a couple of words about it.
Well, it was actually quite interesting, and this project was not only a unique project type, but the delivery of this project was very unique. One of the things in the U.S. that really is driving the advancement of the construction industry is how clients get things built. This particular project was called a public-private partnership. And the way that works is typically a large client like a city, in this case the city was Ottawa, they will contract with a development team. And that development team will include an architect and engineer, a construction team, a developer, a project manager, someone that manages the entire project. And they will essentially pay them a fee to develop, build, and in some cases maintain a large infrastructure project for some number of years. In this case, it was a light rail system in Ottawa. And it was 13 stations, and this was actually a competition. So there were 3 teams competing for this project, and the city is seeking to hire one of these teams to build it and maintain it for 30 years. And in that time, the city will lease that those stations back, and then they'll be turned over at the end of that 30 years. So what's interesting is it offers a municipality the opportunity to have this large infrastructure project built without some of the day-to-day hassles that they would have to manage. And we see more and more that the way projects are being delivered are also affecting the types of firms that are developing.
Sure. That's very interesting. Now let's go to some projects which we can be illustrated with the concrete example, like the one which we are seeing now. What kind of project is that?
So this is Al Mafraq Hospital, which is in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates.
So you don't work only in the U.S., you work worldwide.
We work worldwide. Our offices are worldwide. And a firm of this size, that's one of the benefits, is we have a reach that can allow us to touch cities throughout the world. And not only do we offer different services, but we can handle different project types. This one is a hospital. This one is a local YMCA, and you may not have YMCAs here, but it's basically it's like a community organization. All right, and this is a project that we did with Renzo Piano Building Workshop. It's the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston, Massachusetts.
So you built this theater together with Renzo Piano. But he's an architect, you're an architect. How can you go together?
Well, and it's interesting you asked that. Now, I personally did not build this with him, but my firm Stantec did. And this particular project is in Boston, Massachusetts. As you know, Renzo Piano is located here in Italy, Paris, and he also has an office in New York. What we were able to do is bring the big ideas and big name that Renzo Piano brings to the table, but support it with a local expertise and the strength of our resources, of our disciplines, to have a very successful collaboration. And we do this often. Many times we'll partner with other firms, oftentimes smaller firms, particularly for a project where we may not have a local presence.
I see.
Could
you please elaborate a little bit about the characteristic of this building and the peculiarities of...
Well, what's interesting about this project is that the original museum is actually an old 19th century mansion. And as you can see, the addition which you see here on the screen is a much more contemporary approach to design. And that's something I think is often done very well. When you pair a very contemporary addition or modification to a much more historic structure, rather than trying to match, contrast in a successful way. And I think this is a great example of that.
It has a very large glass. I saw that you did a lot of public buildings and many universities among those. Could you say something about it?
Yeah, actually, I've spent the vast majority of my career designing for universities and colleges in the U.S. And what I've found is they are among the most unique clients because each one has a very strong personality and a very strong character for the campus. So we go into each project with a different approach. Again, founded on what that client needs, what the site demands, what the context demands. This project that you see on the screen here is a perfect example of that. This is a project we did for the University of Mary Washington in Virginia in the U.S. And what's interesting about this project is that the University of Mary Washington has a very classical campus. But this was a new campus that they were building. So they wanted to try something that was different. They wanted to go away from the red brick and the ornate cornices and the ornate in the columns. And they thought that this is an opportunity to be a little more expressive, be a little more contemporary, and be more open without offending the character of the existing campus. So here we used some typical building products in a very different way. You see brick, but you see brick suspended above lighter materials. You see the use of glass, but in large expanses, not just punched ornate openings. You see the use of a strong entry feature.
Yes, that's the most characteristic.
It's very strong. A strong entry feature that's defined by a metal panel that turns down with a column. You can see this is another view of that project. Very strong emphasis on modularity and creating a sense of dynamic. It's a building that has the feeling of moving. It's doing something.
In the surfaces, you see this difference in color, grayish, and that's metal? Or?
This is a zinc. It's a zinc. So we wanted to go with a naturalistic material, something that will weather.
And the other is stone.
The other is actually brick.
Brick.
So you've got a zinc, a brick, and then an aluminum panel.
And what about technologies? Do you have any specific special?
This is actually a very interesting question, because this building was designed for distance learning. So that's learning over the internet. So how do you design a building for people that don't have to be there? that was probably the single biggest challenge we had. And there was a heavy integration of technology in this project, and an emphasis on designing it in a very modular way that would allow you to reconfigure it on the interior as technology evolved, as needs evolved. We worked very closely with our engineers to make sure that we understood how their technology impacted the building and how the building would impact the ability of a student to see a professor and vice versa. So it was a very fascinating process.
So I believe that the structure has a external structure, and within the building is all free for changes.
It's somewhat free. There is a structure to the building, and as you can see, there are blocks or masses that define this building. Each one of those blocks is modular, so within that block it can be reconfigured. And connecting all of the blocks is a vibrant corridor that is activated and allows you to navigate through the building.
And what about energy consumption? You have any?
We did actually. I'm glad you asked that question. We did a couple of very significant things for this project. This project has a green roof, which collects rainwater, also insulates and helps to minimize stormwater runoff. But we also use a geothermal heating system for the building. So we drilled geothermal wells in the site and piped them back to the building to heat the building. And that was out of necessity, because this part of Virginia does not have gas service. So this was how we had to heat the building, and it also had a sustainable benefit.
Does this mean that it is autonomous? Doesn't need to have external energy input?
At least not for heating. Not for heating, yeah.
Okay, not for heating. Do you have other universities you can show us?
Sure.
This is always the same.
Yeah, this is the same. This is the same one.
Well, that's the hospital.
That's the hospital.
This is something.
This is Canada Sports Hall of Fame. As you can imagine, with a firm of our size, we're practicing throughout the world, throughout many offices, and there are many projects that I may not have worked on personally, but as a part of our portfolio, we bring that strength to different clients. So, including events and entertainment venues, higher education and universities, like we spoke about, hospitals and healthcare.
Wow, that's the
museums.
What is that?
These are all part of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. This is actually a connection between the new addition and the existing space. And there's a good exterior photo here. you can start to see. In the background is the original mansion.
I see.
And then you can start to see the glazed connection
Sure,
that we saw in the previous photo there. So you get a good dichotomy of old and new. Interior stair within the addition.
No elevator, no lift.
Right. Yeah. No, there's always an elevator in the U.S. I will say that. So this just represents the variety of work we do at Stantec, and the types of services, the places we work in.
And since you are working worldwide, have you ever done anything here in Italy?
I have not done anything in Italy. I'd love to. Maybe while I'm here in Milan, I'll walk around and look for some projects.
So we take that as a promise and as a hope for the future.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.